Hello, and salutations, my friends. Today I'll be presenting you all with my review of Abyssus, and this game was developed by Double Moose Games and published by the Arcade Crew, releasing on August 12th, 2025. Abyssus is a roguelite FPS where you're thrown headfirst into a brine punk adventure where you and your team of daring explorers are sent under the sea to claim treasure and a mysterious energy source known as Brine within the ruins of a sunken civilization. The game is a fast-paced 1 to 4 player shooter that will test your tactical skills to the ultimate test, and you'll also be able to wield customizable weapons, use ancient technologies to your advantage, and obtain divine blessings to enhance your firepower. As is the case with most roguelites, the game doesn't really have a story. The game will leave you with more questions than answers. You'll have no idea why you're in this place, no idea why the constructs are trying to kill you, no idea how you respawn after death, and no idea how even the power of Brine works. And the game doesn't even have a solid foundation for the lore, as even a lore YouTuber can't cover this. And you'll mostly be left with just imagining why everything is happening, but thankfully, despite the lack of a strong narrative, the game doesn't exactly need it, as is the case with most roguelites, and the gameplay is clearly the star of the show. The core gameplay loop is exactly what you would expect from a roguelite, and it works perfectly. You start a run, blast your way through a series of procedurally generated rooms, grab upgrades, and eventually face off against a boss. And when you die, you lose most of your temporary buffs, but you get to keep some permanent upgrades as you start the next run a bit stronger, and the deeper you dive into the abyss, the harder it gets. The game starts you off with a standard assault rifle called an engine rifle that has 2 firing modes that has a full auto mode and a secondary shot that can overheat but doesn't take any bullets. And you also have a wrench for quick melee attacks and a few grenades as your special ability. But this kind of branches out as you progress through the game, as you can find a scoping pistol, you can find a shotgun, a Tesla gun, and a bunch of other things like that. The gameplay also feels pretty smooth with a double jump and a dash that are essential for dodging and getting into a good position. One of the core parts of the game that ties into the gameplay loop is the blessing system, and as you explore you can find altars where you can choose from different aspects like fire, lightning, frost, spirit, and more, and each one buffs your primary weapon, secondary fire, and abilities in unique ways. For instance, the fire aspect can make your shots do extra damage and set enemies on fire, while the lightning aspect lets your attacks chain between targets. And you can also stack blessings from the same aspect to get even more powerful effects, like having fire spread from one enemy to another, and having lightning chain and provide more effects on different enemies. And while I'd say there's not too many weapons that the game provides, each weapon does feel different, and the mods you can add changes how they handle pretty significantly depending on the mod. As for the game's progression, it's split into 2 parts. During a run, you'll collect soul fragments and gold to buy temporary upgrades and new abilities, and then between runs you'll use your soul fragments for permanent upgrades like more health, extra healing syringes, or even better blessing options, so that's pretty cool. This simple gameplay loop, along with the various blessing options, is what makes this game pretty fun, but unfortunately it isn't without its issues. The enemy variety is quite solid at first, but after playing around 7 hours it starts to wear off. And the different aspects and the effects that you have on your abilities are quite nice. However, I felt that your build felt really confined, and you didn't have much ability to branch out since you're locked into an aspect type for each of your 3 traits. What makes this feel even worse is that you're stuck with whatever build you went in with, which kills the ability to add more variety with different weapons mid-run. Another downside is that there's basically zero exploration in this game, which is a shame, as every map inside of the game is basically built the same, with various corridors leading to a wall, which just makes the decently large rooms feel like a letdown. It also doesn't help that the routine runs that you'll have to do more or less go through the same set of rooms, which make them feel even more boring. I also felt that the overall gear and perk progression was quite slow at the start. It's inevitable that you'll need to start from a low power level and work your way up in these sort of games, but it didn't feel that good to spend 3 to 4 hours before I received enough different weapon unlocks and perks to make it actually feasible for me to reach later levels and survive, even if I have a decent skill level. It also doesn't help that some of the criteria to unlock certain weapon parts are just really annoying, like making a single electric ball hit enemies 200 times before it disappears, or killing 4 enemies at once with 1 shotgun blast. And finally, I have to say that this game just feels like it would be a way better experience with a friend or two, as I feel like the scaling of everything is more geared toward groups of people rather than a solo player like myself. As for the game's artistic presentation, I'd say that the graphics are really nice, and the game nails the self-proclaimed brine punk aesthetic pretty well. It's a great blend of an otherworldly underwater setting with ancient Mesoamerican designs in both the environmental features and the bosses. And all this blends together pretty well and adds to the mystery of the atmosphere. And the particles and effects of both your attacks and the enemies are also quite solid, as they provide a nice variety of color and flair to the gunplay. The music and sound design are also great, and the themes that play for each area in the boss fights are quite good, especially the music for the final boss of the area, as it's very imposing and fitting for the final battle of your run. The sound design of the guns, abilities, environmental effects, and a ton more have sounds that fit pretty well also, and I personally really like the sound feel of the Tesla gun's magnetic storm secondary effect, especially with the spirit blessing attached to it. And I also thought that the sound design of the bosses was top notch and made every fight feel quite epic. As for achievement hunting, while I haven't fully finished it, I'd say that the game will be a fairly difficult achievement hunt, especially since I've been playing solo. There are achievements such as completing the game without collecting any of the essential aspects that you would normally need to complete a run, completing very difficult runs, completing the game with specific weapons, unlocking all logbook entries for all items in the game, and a bunch more things. And while this is definitely doable, I'll likely need to start playing with a friend or two in order to make these tasks a bit easier, as I could already see the achievement grind becoming an annoying affair. So overall, I'd say that Abyssus is a fast-paced game with top-notch gunplay, a satisfying loop for the most part, and an overall immersive art style. And I'd say that the gameplay, though simple, is incredibly visceral, and with a variety of weapons, abilities, and upgrades that can greatly change how you approach each run, I'd say that this is pretty cool. However, the game does have its shortcomings in the lack of any interesting story or exploration, with a grind that can get a bit stale and monotonous. However, despite these issues, I think that the game's core loop, stunning visuals, and epic sound design make it a standout title for fans of the roguelike genre, but maybe not for 20 plus hours of gameplay. Due to these factors, I'll be giving Abyssus a 4 out of 5 for casual players and a 2.5 out of 5 for achievement hunters. So yeah, there are my thoughts on Abyssus, and hopefully this video has helped you out in some way, and if you have any further questions or want to share your thoughts on the game, then feel free to leave them in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, then liking it would help me out a ton, and I encourage you to subscribe for more content like this. But for now, I'm off, and take care everyone.